Thank you so much for joining me today at the Corporate Counsel Exchange. Could you start off by telling me a little bit about your role and responsibilities at BT?
Sure. So my role is Chief Counsel for Procurement and Wholesale Bids. So I've got two teams, but effectively I'm managing it as one team. I reckon it's probably about 60-40 in favour of the procurement side at the moment, and that's what I came to the conference to talk about in the main, because we've developed the way we're supporting procurement. Quite a large community of about 500 buyers globally. BT spends upwards of 8 billion per year across a base of about 18,000 suppliers. So it's quite a large responsibility, but I'm glad to say I'm not required to deliver it all, personally or even within my team. So I have a sort of dotted line into a number of folks within the legal community who help deliver, for example, things outside the UK tend to be supported by non-UK lawyers. So I need to obviously liaise on a global basis with those folks as well.
At the Exchange, you're presenting on prioritising work by material advantage and material risk and demonstrating value through technology. What steps have you taken recently at BT to prioritise work and increase the legal team's efficiency?
Yeah, so recently we established a new legal front door through our current outsourced provider based in Belfast, and we have had a history of having a front door before, but we sort of changed suppliers about a year and a half ago, so it was fairly new to some parts of the community and also within the business. We effectively launched that in February for procurement February last year, and we've seen the volumes increase over time. So currently, year to date, it's something like 1,300 requests have gone through our front door portal. When I say request, that's UK commercial wide, so it's wider than my team, and actually demonstrating the efficiency of the service. On average, it takes them, the cost is about 47%, or about 40% actually, 40% cheaper, where we use that resource rather than BT Legal resource. The 47% actually is what they are able to take and own and finish without it coming back to BT Legal. So we're seeing a real efficiency there.
New technology and new processes can be tricky to embed. How are you overcoming these challenges to ensure the new processes are working well in practice?
Yes, no, you're right. They are tricky to embed. I think where we've seen the biggest sort of hurdles to overcome is one in terms of sometimes the reticence of the business to use those mechanisms. They still like to be able to phone up their in-house counsel, and we encourage them still to do that. I think there's a selling message in terms of the benefits into the business of why it's a good thing to do that, why it's creating an efficiency and more consistency. What's in it for them, and it's often a quicker service. Getting the right resource on the right work at the right price point is good for the company. In terms of the BT Legal team that I manage, I think sometimes there's a bit of a fear about, is this replacing me? So I think we've worked very hard to explain the message internally around why should we be doing things differently. I mentioned the front door, but we've actually also created what I call a sort of a virtual in-house service through a mezzanine sort of level of my resourcing triangle, which is the sort of medium complexity work, which might be low risk and low advantage for the company, but it's complex nevertheless, needs to be done well to a certain quality, but it doesn't need necessarily the most qualified BT experienced lawyers to be on it. And so that work has recently shifted to a third party, which we're now buying services up to 80 hours a week at the moment, but it's a scalable model, so it could ramp up, it could ramp down, depending on the demand. But explaining that and explaining why it's good for the people has been something which has been something we've taken care to ensure that people see it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for them to move up the value chain as well, to do more interesting work and reduce some of the work which historically was going outside BT, which, because we didn't have the capacity, we would have liked to have done some of the high-profile, high-value transactions that maybe have gone to law firms, where we said, well, had we had the capacity, we would have done it ourselves. Well, in today's world, we can do it ourselves because we've built this kind of resourcing strategy that hopefully takes out some of the noise in terms of the routine work that everybody has to do, but they'd rather not have to do. We get that now done by some of the third parties that I mentioned. enable us to give my people more experience of that high-profile work, which hopefully is good for them, good for it makes the job interesting and gives them good opportunity to show value on the most important strategic deals that we have.
And what are the top projects you plan to run in your legal department in 2016? And what do you think will be the main challenges with achieving this?
Yeah, so I talked a bit about the resourcing changes, and I think that's fairly it's new, and I need to see how that delivers success. And I'll be looking for the metrics and making sure I've got the data points to demonstrate why it's been a good thing to resource in the way that I've just described. So showing how the we're creating more efficiency, able to handle more complex work, and doing it at a more cost-effective method of providing that resource. Other projects, so I think policy is something that we need to refresh, and to make sure we've got a very savvy risk-based policy for our procurement organisation, so that it's triggered by underlying risks that are really critical for the company, rather than what I describe as contractual rules that maybe trigger the policy but slightly out of context in terms of the real underlying risk. So that's something that I'm working on, and I think challenges, to answer your question, particularly getting stakeholders on board, both within the legal community and outside the legal community, and showing that it's been a good thing after the event as well, showing success. What was the outcome of this? How did this make things better? How did it reduce cycle time? For example, debt to contract will be, this is the kind of the so what, demonstrating that. The other thing is a big project for 2016 and beyond actually is looking at our terms and looking at our kind of automation templates or automation tools to both to generate contracts and also manage them in life. So at the moment we're very focused on refreshing the content, trying to maybe benchmark with other companies, trying to be best in class in terms of our standard terms for supply. But once we've got that content and we've trained 500 buyers on the new set of terms and conditions that they then need to use in their day job, it's going to be about getting it on a better platform, so which is resilient, which is easy to use for the folks who are using it, and hopefully that talks to the back end systems, talks to the in-life contract management systems, so that the whole process is kind of very joined up. So that kind of development of tools and systems, I think, would be key.
And what services and solutions do you think will be most beneficial to you when trying to achieve these projects?
Yeah, so I think I talked a bit about policy changes, and I think I'm very much on the page of trying to generate greater automation, less unnecessary handoff points, within the legal service process in BT, and as an example with the policy refresh I was talking about, I think we need to have a better system where. And maybe tools or software that actually enable us to do auto-generation of approvals and this sort of thing. So it's less of a manual exercise and a sort of time-heavy exercise. I think that's one, and I think the other one I would say was probably around the contract automation and in-life contract management. There are lots of sort of products out there. I think it's about finding the best fit with the existing systems that we use, and hopefully we've got something that works as well with what we might do on the customer side as well as the supply side, so that the two things sort of look to effectively manage obligations and risk end to end from buy to supply on the customer side.